Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to SACRE. It's Wednesday, the 4th of February, 2 o'clock. Unfortunately, the Chair and Vice Chair have submitted apologies for today's meeting. Therefore, in their absence, can I reach out to the room and ask for a volunteer to stand in as acting Chair just for today's meeting, if possible, please? Sorry, Mike, could you pop your microphone on, so that can be for the webcast.
Yeah, in the absence of any other volunteers, I will step back into the chair to my great surprise and well, I'll have to move, I think.
Thank you, Michael.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for your attendance. Before we move on, may I take it that we'd all like to send a message of sympathy and good wishes to our proper chairman, or chair, Hifsa, with regret that she's not able to be with us this afternoon.
Hi, Sean.
Hello. Is that acceptable to everyone? Yep. Right. Do we have any new members to welcome? Jo?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I would like to welcome Councillor Martin Rogerson, who unfortunately isn't in the meeting today, but he has joined us in replacement of Councillor Barry Martin on the County Council representation. Thank you.
The councillor in his absence, and look forward to seeing him on another occasion. Thank you very much. Any apologies, Jo?
Thank you, yes. I've received the following apologies. Hifsa Haroon Iqbal, Jacqueline Bandar, Gabby Oldfield, Sam Phillips, Lisa Gretton, Lauren Nicholson Ward, Zoe Callahan, Lindsay Jennings, and Drew. And that's it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any other apologies? Okay. Update on membership, first of all. Do we have an update, Jo?
We do. Thank you very much, Chair. So since the last meeting, which was November, there's been, as mentioned just now, a change of representation for the County Council in terms of Councillor Martin Rogerson replacing Councillor Barry Martin. We still have 11 open vacancies at the moment. The list was sent to yourself, Mary, for including in the Governor information packs, which went out in January. So hopefully they're doing their thing and there's been more advertising for those vacancies then. In terms of the election of Vice Chair, currently Lauren Nicholson Ward is the current Vice Chair and has voiced that she's happy to continue the role. However, she's also said that she's happy to step down if there is anybody here today that would like or has any interest in doing that role instead. So once again today, do we have any volunteers in the room who would be interested in the Vice Chair position of SACRE? If not, that's absolutely fine. In this case, I will propose Lauren Nicholson Ward continues as the Vice Chair of SACRE. If everyone's happy with that, a show of hands. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Chair. That's all the updates.
Thank you, Jo. Well done. Declaration of any other business and pecuniary interests. First of all, any other business. According to the protocols of the County Council, only a business that's been declared should be included in the agenda, and there's no space at the end of the meeting for things that people suddenly remember. So if you have anything you wish to raise that's not included in the agenda, could you mention it?
It's very short. I didn't know when I prepared the papers whether I'd be continuing in this role, because this role is always a commissioned role for 1 year only, and I heard yesterday morning that they wish me to continue as advisor to SACRE, provided everybody else is happy for that.
We're all delighted to hear that, and thank you very much for continuing. Any pecuniary interests that people wish to declare? There are very rarely any. This isn't an area where people have substantial pecuniary interests, but you never know.
Other than that, I am a director of my own company, Mary Gale Consultancy, and those are the people who commission me to be advisor to you. So I suppose that is a pecuniary interest in a way.
Yeah.
So let's make sure it's recorded and then we're all above board.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mary. Move on then to the substantial matters of the agenda. Item 5, minutes of the meeting held on the 12th of November, and including any matters arising. First of all, the minutes themselves. May we take these as a true record? Anybody? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Any matters arising? I don't think we need to go through them bit by bit, but first of all, anything on page 5, tribute to Judy Wyman. Page 6, page 7, page 8, and a lot of these are going to come up again in the agenda anyway. Page 9, page 10, page 11, page 12.
Page 11, the National GCSE Data Report. We were waiting for the Staffordshire GCSE Data Report. It has not yet been published, but I receive a weekly update from Staffordshire County Council to say that they are striving to get the information to me as soon as possible.
What's the delay, Mary?
It's the DFE is the delay. That's what I'm told.
Right, okay. So it's not the county council, it's not
No.
schools, it's
Yeah,
the
they
DFE.
have to access a national database which has not yet been updated,
Okay.
but they try every week to get the update.
Okay, thank you. Any other matters arising then? Otherwise, let's move on. Next item is the Code of Conduct review. The Code of Conduct is very straightforward and simple. Half a page, you should all have a copy that Joe's provided for us. The purpose of this is very simply to make sure that everybody is operating with more or less the same set of values and codes of conduct, of respect and of being able to live with disagreement and accept it in a disagreement in a gracious way. Also, to commit to constructively working with the SACRE rather than trying to block it or obstruct it. There have been situations, for instance, well, I won't give an instance, but this is just so that we're all working with the same set of values and kind of culture. Are there any questions about it that people would like to raise, first of all?
I would like to ask why we don't have reference to the 7 principles of public life, the Nolan principles. I think it's there, the intent is there, but I don't think it's as explicit as it should be, because the 7 principles of public life are, as you have referred to, about selflessness, integrity, objectivity, accountability, openness, honesty, and leaders, because we're holders of a public office. So the councillors will be aware of the Nolan principles of public life, and since we play such a big role in the county with regard to RE, I'm wondering whether we ought to add that in and be a bit more explicit. But that is just something from me. That is for you to decide.
Thank you, Mary. I'm very happy to suggest that SACRE looks at the Nolan principles at its next meeting. And the question then is whether we wish to proceed with the current code of conduct or leave that in abeyance for the time being. I think everybody here is a person of goodwill and will contribute in good faith. So I don't think there's any real issue on that one, but perhaps it'd be a good idea if we did look at the Nolan principles and have a fuller discussion on public service and the principles, yes. Would that be acceptable to everyone? Okay. Councillors? Okay. Yeah, thank you. All right. Item 7, NASACRE update. One or two items here that Mary's going to report on. Used to be me, but now Mary.
Okay, so the NASACRE update, just to give you information about what's going on at the moment. This is the National Association of SACREs. I have included, as per the previous meeting about the advice for SACREs about local government reorganisation, that is all indicated on page 16 of your papers. I have no further information than what is written there. I don't know if our councillors have anything to update us on with local government reorganisation.
Not at the moment. Martin is arranging some meetings at the moment, so we won't know anything until the meetings are scheduled.
As the item indicates, there will be issues for this SACRE depending on what direction happens within the county here. And that is still to be revealed, really. So we wait to see, but we need to be prepared for some kind of situation to need to be responded to in due course. There's also reference to the we are NASACRE, isn't it?
Yeah.
Reference to the summer conference. And this is in Liverpool, so it's more accessible, and it looks as if it's going to be a very important one, with the white paper having been published and possibly the something to do with the curriculum review being in the public domain as well. Do you want to say anything about this, Mary? Because I think it would be good if we could send a number of people to this.
So as we have just been found out, we just know that this is in Liverpool, and there are opportunities for us to attend. I've put a little breakdown of costs because we have to pay, obviously, to go. So I would like to go, if that's possible. And I know HIFSA would like to go, definitely. So that's two of us. So you can see there's a sliding scale of how much it actually costs. And this money would come out of the SACRE budget. So we're up to 230 so far. And what I have said is if anybody else wants to go, I don't know if you want to go, Michael. It's whatever, whoever. Anyway, to let Joe know by March the 1st so that we can start booking in and getting our places on the delegate list. It's a one-day conference. It is on, I think it's a Monday. If I remember.
On a Monday, that's right.
It's a Monday.
I've put it in my diary, and I'd like to declare an interest, but I wouldn't wish to take somebody else's place. If somebody else is very keen to go, that's fine, and we don't have to do anything yet, do we?
No.
Although it's like it could get very well subscribed because of all the energy that's going on in the RE world and in the education world, really, at the moment.
Okay. Then just after that, on the next page, we've got, does your SACRE have something to share at the June online workshop? So I have been asked to share the work that we have been doing on EDI, Equality, Diversity and Inclusion. I've been asked to share that at the next June webinar. It's only 10 minutes and I'm allowed 3 slides. That's going to not be very good for me. So it said, they're considering whether they want SACRE from Staffordshire to actually contribute, and I had an email 2 days ago to say they would welcome our contribution. So I will be delivering that on behalf of us. So that's good news.
There's also, this is Bill Moore, I reckon,
Yeah.
the Buckinghamshire Vision. The Buckinghamshire SACRE have produced a kind of philosophy of what they are as a SACRE, and there's a question of whether we would like to have a look at that and reflect on it ourselves. What do you think, Mary?
Yes, I think Bill will be sharing that possibly at the conference and possibly at one of the June webinars. So I'll be able to report back on the shared materials aspect next time as well.
Oh.
So,
Okay, it's not urgent. But,
No.
Okay, that's good. Anything else that people wish to ask about NASACRE, the Association of SACREs? It's going from strength to strength at the moment, so that's good. On to the next item then, which is the report, an update from Mary on what's been going on in our schools across the county.
So first of all, the West Hill Legacy Project, called Engage, Explore, Reflect. This has been taken over, as you know, by HIFSA, our chair, and by YouthNet Stafford. And they have been going into schools and supported approximately 12 schools since the beginning of the term, that's in the autumn term. And they have had an opportunity to learn all about Islam, about what it means to be a Muslim. They've learnt about multi-faith trails. They've learnt about Christianity and so on. And we do have with us Sean Miles, because Sean, you sent us an evaluation regarding HIFSA's visit in conjunction with the rest of your Celebration of Faith Week. So I don't know if you want to say something about the resource that SACRE is offering to schools free. You know, we give them half a day workshop and it's free. So I don't know if you want to say something there, Sean.
And it is working, yes. We reached out in order to part fund one of the experiences that we had during a week in school, and we had HIFSA join us for a day. And the engagement with the pupils was very, very positive. We had a range of faith visitors come and join us, representing a range of different faith groups for a whole week. And it was launched with Bishop Tim from Lichfield, who helped us celebrate 20 years of the school. And we ended the week with another bishop from a Pentecostal church in Birmingham, who was very charismatic, uplifting, and delivered very joyous worship. But what he did do for our pupils is expose them to a range of faiths, to a range of worldviews, a range of beliefs, which really did provide some real life experience for the pupils, rather than just listening about the facts and the information from teaching staff. To actually meet people who represent these different faith groups was a real first-hand experience, and it made a real difference for the children's learning.
I think we ought to commend you and the school for this very creative initiative, which seems to have been a great success, and to have ticked a huge number of boxes, if I can put it like that. I'm very impressed by the number of outside speakers that you were able to draw together. I'm very interested in the Dr. Sheridan. I don't know whether he is accessible to Staffordshire at all, but I mean, we hunt and hunt for people who are willing to represent the Jewish faith, Jewish tradition, and also a variety of Christian traditions. And I can well believe that the pupils were really enthralled with this.
Very much so. Peter Sheridan is married to a Anglican priest, so which is an interesting conundrum anyway. But yes, he's able to visit schools. He visits our school quite regularly.
Does he live in the Cannock area?
Lichfield.
Really? Okay. Thank you.
That's fine.
I'm sure we all wish to commend Sean and the school for this good work and for this report, and it's very encouraging. And it's the sort of thing we would hope all pupils would have a chance to experience. Of course, it's a sort of high point within the year. You then sort of build on this in a more kind of low-key way for the rest of the year, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, the pupils have various units of work which represent explore different faith types. And these people were timed to visit the school at a point where certain year groups were exploring Judaism or Islam, or even non-world views, such as the humanist Simon Nightingale was just brilliant. So, yeah, it was timed well, and the children related to these people really, really well. So.
Okay, Mary, would like to carry on?
Yeah. So that what Sean has been telling us about is about the support he has had for his school. So there are support, obviously, for many other schools throughout the county. And last time we had the meeting, somebody asked if I could access a school in the John Taylor Multi-Academy Trust, because they do very well with their religious education. So I went to one of the schools in the Multi-Academy Trust. I went to Fradley Park Primary, and that's near Lichfield as well. And I worked with the RE lead there, and on page 20 you can see that we've got an evaluation from them, so that shows the impact that they felt I had had on their school. Even though they do very well within religious education, they still felt that they had lots more to learn. So that was really a very, very productive meeting indeed, and I was able to explain more about our Staffordshire agreed syllabus, because they're in a multi-academy trust, so they don't have to follow the agreed syllabus from Staffordshire. They can follow any syllabus, whereas in Sean's school, which is a county school, a local authority school, even though it's a Church of England school as well, they have to by law follow the agreed syllabus. So they are saying that they will be following the agreed syllabus, and the reason why their RE is of such a high standard, which is very kind of them to say, is because they do all of them follow the Staffordshire agreed syllabus, because they have chosen to. So that was a very very interesting meeting, and it was a very productive meeting. So I've put the evaluation in there for you to have a look at.
Thanks, Mary.
Then over the page, the Cullum Legacy Project on page 22. I have been supporting the schools with equality, diversity and inclusion aspects. It's called the Cullum Legacy Project because we received a prestigious grant here in Staffordshire to develop a project, and that was to work on equality, equity, diversity and inclusion within as many schools as possible. It wasn't actually working with the pupils, it was working with trustees, it was working with members, governors, head teachers and heads of department. So I have been working and continuing to work on that, and that is the Legacy Project, is the aspect of the NASACRE June webinar that I have been given 10 minutes to discuss with everybody. So that still continues. And I was at a conference at the weekend, which goes in with the networking, where I met up with the CEO of the Cullum Trust, and I gave her a brief update about how the Legacy Project was going, and she said it's great to know that we can still continue to offer these aspects of education even though now the grant has run out. And so she was pleased with that, because sometimes when the grant is finished, the project finishes. And she said the good thing about the Staffordshire SACRE is that you always like to continue with the work that has been started and developed, because it takes longer than a year to have an impact, doesn't it, on schools.
Yeah.
The next section, number 4, is the networking. I have been networking with RE today. I've been working with the National Association of Teachers of Religious Education. I've been discussing with Entrust and so on. I've been working with the John Taylor Mat, and then I attended a NATRE conference just this weekend, and Jen was there as well, but I'll let Jen talk about that when we get to that point, when we talk about the curriculum and assessment review. So it was a great conference, and in the next meeting, HIFSA will give an update on that conference because she was there as well. So there were 3 of us there from Staffordshire, which was quite a high representation, and it was a national conference all about religious education, and we did it all in our own time, didn't we, Jen? We gave up our time, and we all paid ourselves, and it was great. The next bit is from NASACRE itself, and that's on the next page. It says Ofsted new 2025 inspection framework and toolkit and what it means for religious education. So what I've done with this, I have lifted from a NASACRE presentation the actual slides, and I've put them there for you to have a look at. And this is what Ofsted are looking for within schools under the new framework which started in the autumn term of 2025. And you can see it's talking about social, moral, spiritual, cultural, British values, central faiths, beliefs. It talks about bullying, prejudice, including religion and belief. It talks about religion and equalities and protected characteristics. Talks about RE entitlement and social and community cohesion. So you can see Ofsted are very much thinking along the same lines as our agreed syllabus, because our agreed syllabus emphasising these things over and over again, but we emphasise it through religious education. Now I'm going to embarrass Sean, because Sean is fresh from an inspection, and we're talking very fresh, and perhaps you could actually affirm whether the things that I have written here are actually true, because you've had the lived experience, whereas I've just had the actual conference.
Yes, I do. It's very much as Mary has said, and as her notes have said. We had a phone call on Monday, the 5th of January. If you remember, the weather was a very snowy day, and most of the schools around my school were closed. And fortunately, we were open because we had a phone call that morning to let us know that Ofsted were going to join us on that Tuesday and Wednesday. We had 5 inspectors, and so yes, it's a very fresh experience for us all.
Are you allowed to share any outcomes?
Yeah, we can talk about we're allowed to talk at the outcomes at the end. So, so there are 8 evaluation areas which Ofsted inspect across, and there are 5 gradings against each one, except safeguarding, of course, which is either met or not met. And the school achieved strong standard across every evaluation area, which was brilliant to receive, really. And as a result of that, we have been on the road quite a bit, talking to head teacher groups, both in this local authority and others, to share our experiences and to talk about the kinds of things that schools ought to do ahead of inspection so that they're prepared and ready.
Well, I think we ought to congratulate you and the school again, Sean, because I think Ofsted are tightening up in some ways and making it very clear what kind of expectations there are for schools. And the fact that your school has met all these expectations so well is incredibly pleasing and commendable.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
And no doubt you're being invited round to say, how did you do it?
Yes, yeah, that's happened quite a bit, Michael. So we've been Sandwell, Birmingham, 3 times to head teacher groups here in Staffordshire as well. So, but it's been nice to have that recognition, and it's been a challenging process, but a fair process, we feel. Yeah.
And Michael's grading for his school is quite exceptional. He's been quite modest there, and I would like to think that being a Church of England school has actually helped and supported in achieving that grading, because you had had that multi-faith week, you have the you have the RE inclusion quality mark at a higher standard, and Ofsted are looking at all those types of things now within the school to know whether the school has a holistic approach towards teaching and learning, and whether the whole school buys into its ethos, its values and its vision. And I think Sean's school, having visited it many, many times over the last 14 years, is an embodiment of those aspects. So I would like to reiterate what Michael has said. Congratulations.
You haven't mentioned the SIAMS inspection that goes on alongside, but no doubt that that doesn't give quite such a nuanced report. But I would feel that the whole science structure does in fact press schools to think much more clearly about who they are, what they are, and why they're trying to achieve what they are trying to achieve. So it all helps towards establishing a very strong school culture and philosophy.
I think the fact of being a Church of England school or school of any faith, that is an important feature, and it does weave its way through what we do on a day-to-day basis, and it does support the foundations of what we live by and stand by, and the visions and the values of the school were referred to in the Ofsted report, so it's clear that it does make a big difference to how we work.
And another feather to your bow, you are a science inspector yourself, aren't you? So
yes, I do that as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do go out and inspect the schools, so it does, yeah. It gives us a lot of experience that we can draw on.
Okay. The next item is just a call for bursaries and subject knowledge courses for teachers. So there has been a lot of research done by the National Association for Teachers Religious Education, RE today, and other various religious education bodies, and what they've done is that they've written an open letter to the Secretary of State for Education saying that they want to see bursaries for RE teachers, that's money to train to be an effective RE teacher, and they want to see those reinstated. They were some many years ago, then they fell by the wayside, and now they're saying that since RE is so important, since social community cohesion is so important, equalities, religion, belief is so important within schools, that they feel that there should be bursaries for them, and we just await to see if that letter has any impact. So that's the end of the key issues. I take any questions if you have any.
As always, we admire and respect Mary for the energy that she has and the amount of time and work she achieves on behalf of RE and schools and SACRE. We're very fortunate that Mary is so engaged and committed and gives us such support. So thank you very much, Mary.
You're welcome.
On to item 9, curriculum and assessment review. And is Jen going to say a little bit about
Yes,
this?
Jen. Jen and I were in a conference, and Jen went to this particular part of the conference, so she's going to share how the curriculum and assessment review is going with regard to religious education.
So we were really lucky and fortunate to spend the whole of Saturday with very, very passionate RE members of our community. And it was very important that Vanessa Ogden, who is kind of leading the way, spoke to us about our curriculum review that has been drafted and published in November. And within that, there was a conversation about the need for substantive knowledge within RE, looking at matters of importance, organised traditions, ultimate questions, local and national belief within that, and there was reviews into the kind of disciplinary knowledge, which we would refer to as the ways of knowing, looking at our theological, sociological and philosophical approach. And throughout the day, there was lots of different conversations, and within our Place in a Crowded Curriculum session that was led by Deborah Weston, ABE, she was discussing about what the national curriculum draft would look like. Now, we were told very clearly that we couldn't have the actual draft because every semicolon and colon mattered within that. But what is really lovely to see is that it's the programmes of study that they are attempting to get into Parliament and into the DFE for March is very much they are hoping that will be the case, that it will be successful for that vision paper. within it, and it wasn't to be prescriptive. There would be some suggestions of programmes of study, but it was looking at Key Stage 2, in particular, looking at the central importance to religious traditions and why, and then for Key Stage 3, looking at divergence and convergence of religion. And there was some suggestions that RE and the national curriculum will have a local study, a little bit like the history national curriculum within that, but also a focus on our smaller religious traditions, and particularly there was an emphasis in a discussion about paganism, perhaps making a feature within that curriculum as well.
Thank you, Jen. I think we're anticipating that there will be a proposal to go forward to include religious education within the national curriculum, and for there to be a statement of national entitlement for every pupil, which will, in a sense, go alongside that inclusion. And I'm interested to hear that there might be an option for local variation, local inclusion, according to the presence of various traditions and events and so forth in the local community. I think we wait to see what's going to turn up. Some of you and Mary will know that when the idea of a national curriculum first came out, there was quite a shock because the initial proposals seemed to want to distance themselves from faith communities and to put it all into the hands of professionals and education managers. And it looks as if they have stepped back from that. And I think there is a certain kind of lobby, if you like, within RE that would tend to turn RE into a philosophy and ethics subject. So I'm very pleased to hear you refer to the actual faith traditions and the faith communities that are existing on the ground, and that are the experiences that some pupils will come to school with.
It's also really important to note that in those discussions, there was almost a phased approach that they were talking about, and still maintaining local SACREs and the role of local SACREs within the building of that national curriculum as well, which was quite heartening to hear that they were looking for a dual system as well. So they're not trying to remove our Church of England schools, for instance, and the programmes of study there with our kind of local diocese, but more that it was a kind of union of everything together, but certainly with SACREs having a really important role moving forward. So that was quite heartening.
And it is pleasing to note that our agreed syllabus falls in line with much of what Jen was listening to. For those of you who don't know, there's the national curriculum and the basic curriculum. The national curriculum currently does not include religious education. That's part of the basic curriculum, and they want to move it from the basic into the national. And the reason it's the basic as well is why we have to have an agreed syllabus. But it's good to hear that we are in line, I feel, with what is being proposed, because in our agreed syllabus we talk about beliefs, teachings, we talk about sources, we talk about practices, expressing meaning, identity and diversity. So I would think if a national curriculum came on board, it would be looking at the current planning we have and see where that actually fits in the new national curriculum. I cannot imagine it is going to be a lot of extra work. I think it's more a case of working out what we have and where it fits into what sections, to be honest. So I'm quite optimistic that it's going to be not too much extra work for us. So that would be good, wouldn't it, Michael?
It would. Sorry, any questions on the curriculum review. It's a major piece of work that's going on at the moment, and it's going to shape children's education, not only RE, but children's education as a whole for the next decade or more. Okay, thank you very much. So we move on to this very substantial amount of material.
Quick.
Isn't it? Is this the safeguarding?
Yeah.
Yes. Mary, you always produce vast amounts of material at the drop of a hat. So over to you.
So we're just going to have a very quick flow through safeguarding. The reason we do this is because we, as a SACRE, have a safeguarding policy. HIFSA goes into schools, I go into schools, the YouthNet goes into schools. They are part of SACRE. And in order to be effective within a school, we have to know all about safeguarding, because something could occur within one of our workshops which would alert us to talking to people within the school about could we help this child or this teacher in any shape or form. So what I do within my own role within the county, not just within RE, but I train on strategic safeguarding for governing boards, members and trustees. And for the parish that I'm in, I'm the safeguarding lead. And so I train on safeguarding within the parish that I'm in as well. So with regard to safeguarding, I don't think I need to stand up. I think it moves. Yeah. So just for you to be aware, it's the Education Act. We have to have local discussions about safeguarding, and it's part and parcel of every school, and it is the law. And when Ofsted go in, if safeguarding isn't right, they don't bother looking at teaching and learning. They just go for the jugular. So safeguarding's got to be right, and those going into schools have got to understand what it means for safeguarding. So basically, it's looking after the children, making sure they get the best education possible.
In case anybody missed the acronym, GBs is governing bodies.
Oh yeah, not Great Britain.
It's important to note that governing bodies have a serious responsibility here.
Yeah. So governing bodies are responsible and accountable for safeguarding within the school, and they hold the head teacher to account and senior leaders to account for safeguarding. They do not need to have level 1 safeguarding, level 2 safeguarding training. They just need to hold the other people in to account for it. So here is some definitions about what safeguarding is, but I think you're getting the idea already. It's about looking after children and making sure their welfare is catered for. There is safeguarding, which is, we understand what that means, and there's also child protection. Both are hand in glove, but you have to know that within a safeguarding policy, which could be through a multi-academy trust from the local authority, there would be a policy stating what all schools must do, and then there'd be a child protection policy running alongside it, which the school uses for their own local aspects. For instance, if they had a pond, and they would need to put a fence around it. So those kind of things. So there's safeguarding, which is general and overarching, and there's child protection, which is more to do with the localized aspects. So we've got to ensure that all pupils understand that they are being kept safe by their teachers, and the Secretary of State wants to ensure that all schools put children first. It's almost like you're thinking, well, isn't that what they do? But some schools are schools for adults, and I meet many, and some schools are schools for children. And you would not actually believe that there might be 2 types of schools, but there are. So first things we have to do is make sure that within a school everybody understands what safeguarding is, and to say, and the school that says we never have safeguarding and they boast about it, it doesn't happen here, then we know that actually they're just not taking on board safeguarding culture. So it could happen here. So when I go into school and talk to pupils, when I run a choir, when HIFSA goes in, we have to realise it could happen to us within the workshop that a child makes some kind of revelation about their life or something that's been happening to them. So we always work thinking about the best interests of the child, and we always report if there's any concerns we have about that. We have certain R's, as we call them, with regard to safeguarding. So the teachers, who are the professionals, they're taught to recognise it record it, report it and refer. They don't ever investigate. Teachers do not investigate. It's the top level senior leaders that investigate. And then the teachers teach the children to recognize it, possibly within their families, within friends or strangers, and how to report it, and then how to refuse for somebody to touch them inappropriately. And so they use and do that through resources that are available from lots of national bodies. There's lots of statutory documentation which is available for safeguarding. The main one is this document called Keeping Children Safe in Education. That came out in 2025 and it is updated usually every September, and all schools have to modify their policies, and so do we and SACRE have to modify our policy within line with the latest Keeping Children Safe in Education. There is also another document, Working Together to Safeguard Children, and that's talking about how you work with external agencies as well, who work together with you, the school, or ourselves as SACRE. So the school itself would have a safeguarding policy, they'd have a child protection policy. Whistleblowing policy is not about how to blow a whistle on the playground. That's in case somebody actually saw something within school that they thought was not right or correct, and they would have an avenue of how to report that. There has to be a staff code of conduct. So we have a code of conduct, then all teachers have a code of conduct, and they have to behave in such a way towards children. And if they go against that code of conduct, then they can be given a letter to say this is how they must actually behave within school, or they could go on a performance improvement plan, or they could find themselves under a safeguarding investigation themselves. And then there's behaviour policies, anti-bullying policies, health and safety policies, and so on. And schools must, and the word must means it is the law, they must ensure that they have those policies and those policies are updated. Part of my job when I go into schools is to check, not because of religious education, but in my other role, is to check those policies are up to date. And if I find there is a school that's working on keeping children safe in education from 2019, then it is a massive red flag, and you know I have to work with them to improve things.
Could I just go back, Mary? Just a quick comment about whistleblowing. It's really difficult for us to grasp this, but if anybody sees anything that causes them concern, they are legally obliged to blow the whistle. And there's a great deal of reluctance about whistleblowing, but there is a duty, an obligation now on people to do the whistleblowing if there is anything that causes them concern. And they have to be protected in carrying out the whistleblowing. That's what that's all about. Because whistleblowers are not popular, you know.
So imagine that within a school something was going wrong, or we saw something and we didn't go to the head teacher because it was the head teacher was doing something wrong. Then we can go to somebody called the DSG, the Designated Safeguarding Governor. So like we are trustees, if you like. Well, governors are trustees. They look out and have the overarching knowledge about the school. So people can go to the Designated Safeguarding Governor, and schools by law must have this person. They are trained. You can go to that person to say, I'm worried about this, I'm worried about that. Or the Designated Safeguarding Governor can go into a school, of course they can, and they can look at all the policies, they can talk to people about safeguarding. Now, within the school as well, there's somebody called the Designated Safeguarding Lead. So that is somebody within school who is paid as a senior leader to be in charge of safeguarding. And if I visit a school and I see something with a child, I can go to the Designated Safeguarding Lead, because the governor wouldn't be there, they have to be invited in. Then I can go to them and I can talk about what I have seen, and they are the people then who report to another authority, so social services. So I wouldn't be able to report. I would have to go to the designated lead. And if they're not in the school, there's a deputy designated safeguarding lead. And they are trained at a higher level to be able to help and support anybody who feels that there is a safeguarding issue within school. Now, the safeguarding lead for the school, doesn't do everything off their own bat. They then go to somebody called the LADO, the Local Authority Designated Officer. So you can see there is a ladder of referring. And if there is something in school that we are worried about or head teachers are worried about, they don't have to act alone. They talk to the LADO, the local authority person, and they can ask questions if they think somebody's harmed a child. For instance, I had an instance the other day where a teacher had dragged a child by their feet from under the staging of the school, and the LADO had to be involved. And then we had to find out, did they do that out of malice and nastiness, or did they do that because the staging was about to collapse? The child shouldn't have been under there anyway, and so actually they were going to save the child's life. So you can see it's never a cut and dried scenario. So this is where LADOs are excellent. They know their job and they know it well.
Do LADOs work with just county schools or with academies as well?
They work with all schools. All schools, LADOs, yeah. And Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent gather together. They have experience together and they talk to each other. These are the documents that schools can access that I referenced. And I always put one of these in because there's a mistake on here. So when I'm training, I always say to the governors, what is the mistake on this slide? And sometimes it takes a while. I don't know if anybody's noticed. I see Jen's made, what do you think is the mistake? The dates, yes. Can you see one says 2024, the Keeping Children Safe in Education? It should be the 2025 one that schools are referring to. But this is the common mistake they make. They're using the wrong documentation. Now, documentation does not keep children safe, but it does have lots of guidelines within it on how to keep children safe. And then within Staffordshire and all counties is something called the Prevent Agenda, which is the prevention of terrorism within localities, within your schools. And you might think, oh, Mary, this must be to do with high schools. No, it's to do with all schools, all ages, because children live in households where parents may say derogatory things about other races, beliefs and cultures, and that child thinks that that is the correct way to be. Then they go online and they see that there are organizations which talk about not being very kind to other people, and that leads into terrorism. So the Prevent Agenda is massive within schools as well. Although we do have to be careful, because when I was in Stoke, I had a child who said they lived in a terraced house, and they lived in a terraced house, not a terrorist house. But you can imagine the chaos that caused when the teacher got the wrong end of the stick. And we can smile about it, but these things happen, and you have to be aware that children say things, and sometimes it's okay, and sometimes it's not quite okay. All staff, all volunteers have to be trained with regard to safeguarding. So if you were a volunteer, were in a school, you would have to be trained on level 1 safeguarding. We can't have speakers coming into schools that haven't been trained. And then within the training as well, you have to have something called a DBS check, a Disclosure and Barring Service check, and you are given a number. And Ofsted, when they come in, they check a register called the Single Central Record. And if, for instance, I'm a regular visitor at one school where I take choir every Monday night, I am on their Single Central Record, and I have a DBS check, and I have a number. And they do spot checks on those numbers and go back to the National Register. I do know of schools that have put in different numbers and have been caught out because there's a space. Everybody must have a number. So my number is always carried around with me, and I always carry my certificates around with me as well. So safeguarding training for all of those people I've just been talking about is about the things you can see here. Child-on-child abuse used to be called peer-on-peer abuse, but this is the new terminology. And when I look at policies from schools and I see the word peer-on-peer, I know that school is not up to date. Domestic abuse, domestic violence. I've just done all my domestic violence training for the parish that I'm working in. And everybody has the opportunity to have this training. The ones that are most difficult to actually talk about staff with is the female genital mutilation aspect, the FGM. You might have heard that in the news. And they say, well, that wouldn't happen here. But actually, there have been a number of FGM incidences within Staffordshire where a hotel has been hired specifically for FGM operations. And you wouldn't quite believe it, would you? But it happens. Now, we're possibly more au fait with children of neglect who've been neglected and so on, but it's also about sexual exploitation, it's about drug runners, it's about county lines, it's all of those things. So all staff are given training on that. And they are also given training on physical abuse, emotional abuse, social, you know, those types of things, and neglect that have a massive impact upon a child. And families are complex, so staff have to learn about those complex needs. Not all families are perfect. None of us live in a perfect family, and we must be careful that we do not have middle-class values that we try and imprint on other people, when in actual fact those other families work well. They're just not as perhaps economically, you know, viable as some families, but that doesn't mean to say they don't love their children. So we've got to be very careful with regard to safeguarding with these aspects. Children with disabilities, we know that children with disabilities have a greater risk of being abused in some way or form, and those families with not much money, those families with a previous history of childhood abuse, where a mother has been abused, it's possible that her child might be abused. It can happen. The next bit is the keeping children safe in education. I keep going back to that document. You can see how many parts there are to it. And if they're in a school, then everybody has to learn about those parts. If they are volunteers, they learn about just the first part, the safeguarding part, about emotional abuse, neglect, sexual abuse, and so on. So child-on-child abuse within the school is the one that is most prevalent. People think that means another child molesting another child in some sexual way. No, it isn't. It's about bullying. It's not about boys being boys. It's not about banter. It's not about having a laugh. If another child is being horrible consistently to another child, then that actually is child-on-child abuse. So it's not just sexual abuse we're talking about here. And in high schools... Not only. Sorry. Yeah, not only. And in high schools, we have a lot of teachers say, oh, it's banter. It's the boys being boys. Well, we can't have that. We've got to learn that we respect each other, irrespective of, you know, your sex or what have you. So that is very difficult within schools. Very difficult indeed. And we could see that within a workshop. And HIFSA would see it, particularly if she was talking about Muslim children. There were Muslim children within her groups. She might see some aspects of bullying or child-on-child abuse. Then schools have to record these aspects, and they have to record it. They usually do it through an online database called CPOMS, or My Concerns, and everybody has access to that who's a teacher, and they record anything that they've seen, and that goes straight to the designated safeguarding lead. Even if I was on a course and I was a head teacher, if there was a reference to one of those aspects being filled in, CPOMS, I would get an email straight away to say there's a safeguarding issue at school. This is what has been recorded. I would look at it. I would risk assess it there and then. This is why when you run a course for head teachers, they're always in and out. Because safeguarding just happens and you have to address it straight away. So recording it, so if I saw something, I would go to the head teacher or whoever's in charge, and they would record what I had seen and so on, and they would act on it. Then, of course, there's all the online safety aspects. We hear this in the news all the time, don't we? So we have to be aware of that. HIFSA and I have to be aware. YouthNet have to be aware. If we're emailing schools, you know, and a child gets hold of our email address and starts emailing us, we've got to be aware of the responsibilities we have. And then we have to be aware that if a child says, oh, you're telling me about that? Well, you know, last night I got an email from X, Y, and Z, and it said this. So we have to be aware all of the time. So online safety, so many risks. You are all aware of those risks. You are adults, aren't you? Well, children are not aware of the risks until we bring those risks to the forefront. Radicalisation, which is the prevent gender, online grooming, which is where, you know, they pay a lot of money to youths to go and deliver drugs and so on. And it's happening everywhere. So the designating lead, they have the lead responsibility for online safety. They train their staff. They have policies within schools. And when Hifs and I go into school, we have to be aware of those policies and adhere to them. So if we were in the sixth form and one of the sixth form girls said to us, oh, have my email address. Could you email me tonight? All that information. We can't give that information out. So we have to be aware of these things. There's a lot of work currently about gender questioning, and we no longer have the word trans written into the policies that we have in school, and a woman is a woman and a man is a man according to their biological sex, according to the government as stated currently. Then there's cybersecurity, and that involves all of us, especially Joe with our email addresses. We have to be careful that we don't access links that might actually then compromise every one of us within SACRE. So don't go to any links that you think look strange, because then if we're on your list, if you like, contact list, then we too will be involved in your cyber security issues. So be careful. We're nearly finished. So just a key reminder, there are documents to help and support with safeguarding, Ofsted inspection and the toolkit. Lots of information about safeguarding, but as Sean said, safeguarding is either met or not met. There is no investigation, you're either doing it or you're not doing it. And behind that word met is about 500 documents. So it's important. All designated governors, leads, they are monitoring, safeguarding, internal monitoring, external with audits, and the single central record, which is that list of all the people that come into your school and every teacher. That's really important, and we have to check it's secure. We can't have that just out on a desk somewhere. It's got important information, and any new staff have to be trained within for safeguarding within so many days of being in the school, and the same for governors. As I said, Ofsted is either met or not met. And if you are in a school, and you may not know this, and they actually employ somebody, then you've got to have somebody on the interview panel that's had safer recruitment training. You cannot interview and you cannot appoint unless somebody has had safer recruitment training. And that's usually a governor, the DSG, or the head teacher. So safer recruitment's important. Online safety, including AI. Be careful with using artificial intelligence. Can lead you down an avenue that you don't want to go down. Parents, we're finding at the moment, are using AI to help and support them write letters to school about bullying. And it's causing a lot of chaos within schools. And would you believe it, when we go into schools, we have to inform them that we do have a safeguarding policy from SACRE, because we have to share or swap those documents. We have to show our DBS information, and we have to communicate that we have had safeguarding training. Otherwise, we can't be put in charge of a group of children. We have to have this training. So things can go wrong, and this is just a case study about a little boy called Arthur, and I'm sure you've seen many case studies in the news. And the thing about Arthur is that nobody listened to him, and everybody was worried that they would be upsetting the parents. They didn't hear his voice. They didn't hear what he was saying. And I think it's the same with the little Muslim girl, Sarah. Her father took her out of school to homeschool her, which meant to hurt her. So we have to be careful about homeschooling. So everybody has to reflect on safeguarding within school and adhere to the principles that are there, and the same with all the policies that the staff have to adhere to, and the visitors as well. So safeguarding is everybody's responsibility, including our own at SACRE. Even though you might think, well, I don't go into schools, it doesn't matter. You are responsible for me going into schools. So if you see something within a policy you think is not correct within our policies, you have to inform us. Don't whistleblow unless you've had a chat first, because it might just be something that we're not explaining to you. So staff have to teach about safeguarding. That's important as well. Children have to understand it. And any allegations and concerns, if I did something that was incorrect, according to the eyes of the school, I would be referred to the LADO. So, and there's just a little, our school safeguarding and the ethos there. And I think, oh, those are the acronyms that you were mentioning there, Michael. So many acronyms, and these are just to do with safeguarding. So many. So I always then do a little quiz for schools about, do you know what this acronym means? But I'm not doing a quiz for you. Okay, any questions?
Yeah. You said a male is a male and a female is female. Is that right that schools are putting the children in the same toilets? They're all sharing the same toilets? Or has it been reversed? Because there's one school I know of that the boys and the girls are using the same toilets at break times.
So it depends on the age. I mean, in nursery, sometimes the boys and girls are all into 4 toilets, whatever. It depends on the age, but at high school, it's not appropriate. And if you have a child who wishes to use the alternative toilet because they're identifying as another gender, then you say, well, use that toilet, and usually that's the disabled toilet. So the law has changed. The Equalities Act has changed. It says a woman is a woman and a man is a man according to their biological birth, and they have to follow the regulations set out by the Equal Opportunities law. So does that help? If there is a school that is not doing it, then it has to be discussed, it has to be talked about. Because they may say, we don't have the money to change it at the moment. We don't have the resources. So they need to make reasonable adjustments for those factors.
Yeah, because my granddaughter was on about the school that she goes to, that they share all the toilets at break time. The lads and the girls are all going to sort of like, they put them all together, and it caused a problem. But I know they did say that at one time, that they were putting them all together, and all of a sudden they changed it back, didn't they, or something?
I'd be very surprised if these were what you might call open toilets. I would expect the toilets to be single cubicles, and that pupils were allowed to use these, or had to use them, whether they were male or female, or questioning their gender. But they have the privacy of a single cubicle.
Yeah, they've got a privacy of single cubicle. Yeah, they have got a single cubicle, but they're all just, toilets, unisex toilets. So I was wondering if they are putting them back to male and females again.
I'm totally an amateur in this area, though I've taken a considerable interest in it. There has been quite a lobby in the past for people who are transitioning or who have transitioned to be recognised and affirmed and to be allowed to live according to the orientation that they wish to live by. But this has come up against the protection of the rights of particular protected groups, particularly women in this case. And there's been a lot of publicity in the paper about the clash between the two ideologies of recognising people who wish to adopt a particular gender orientation, which is not their biological orientation, over against those who feel vulnerable and threatened by the inclusion of such people in their own particular safe space. And the recent legal case that has happened has put the balance of protection now onto those who are women and who wish to have a safe space for women or girls, if you like, in the open arena, so that they will not have the risk of having to share that space with someone who is biologically male. And this has caused a considerable amount of furore in those who are lobbying for trans rights. But as I understand it, and as Mary says, the law has changed quite dramatically and quite suddenly and quite recently. So everybody is adjusting to this. I don't know whether other people have got any comments on this, but I personally, I think this is a move in the right direction myself.
There is a shift in some schools in the sense that when new schools are built, we have issues in some high schools where areas of the schools that are not policed are toilets for obvious reasons. And there are schools, both primary and secondary, where the toilet blocks are along a corridor space and the cubicles are off the corridor, and so it is a unisex unit. All toilets are floor-to-ceiling cubicles, and what has resulted is a very quick reduction in issues that occur in toilets from time to time, as they do in schools. So that is one of the shifts that have been, but predominantly most schools that I'm aware of and I see have separate gender toilets.
For schools, the issue is you provide a safe space for your pupils. Safe space. If a child did identify as trans, it's okay. We don't have to say, no, you're not. But we must provide them with a safe space as well. So all children, irrespective of how they say what they are, who they are, they have to have a safe space. Perhaps possibly not those who identify as cats, because we have had schools where children identify as cats and they want to use a litter tray. No, I mean, there's common sense, isn't there, as well, within all of this. But you have to give them a safe space. That's important. So that is a swift tour of safeguarding. I told you I wouldn't labour the point.
Thank you very much, Mary. If anybody does have any further comments or questions, please say so. While you're considering, just to share with you that every 3 years, in order for me to have permission from the bishop to continue serving as a minister in churches, I have to have my safeguarding upgraded. I have to go on a course and to show evidence that I have taken that course and that it has not only been taken, but that I can show some sort of evidence of having taken it on board. So it's being taken very seriously at all levels, and quite rightly too. I don't know whether Jen's got any comments. Okay. Thank you very much. It's heavy stuff, this, in a way, and we're grateful to Mary that she's been able to take us through this fairly briskly, but important it is for us all.
The next part is about the school workforce data report, agenda item 11. You might remember last time I gave you national outcomes of the workforce data report. That's where schools which are high schools have to put on a national database how many hours they spend on religious education over the year. It's the same for history, same for geography, same for science, but what happens is religious education for Staffordshire, I receive the information. Well, when I brought this up at the last meeting, I hadn't received the information, but now I have, and that information for Staffordshire schools is on page 76. And the data report was sent to me by NASACRE, the National Association of Teachers of Religious Education, and there has been a decrease in the amount of schools actually giving the data. That's important. Not all of them have filled in the RE data, so it's hard to compare year on year. But looking at the data that I was presented with and looking at last year's data and looking at the websites of schools, there are 3 schools within the county who are not offering RE, and they are indicated on page 76. Leek High Specialist College, Western Road High School and JCB Academy. Now, they were on the list last year, they were on the list the year before. JCB says it has no interest in it whatsoever because they're a technology college and RE has nothing to do with technology. So it's a little narrow-minded, but I'm just saying what they say. But 3 schools isn't bad, considering when we started this about 5 years ago, there were 23 schools. So we are improving in Staffordshire. So, you know, it's well done. And the schools, obviously, that are recording the most religious education are those which are faith schools. Catholic schools and Church of England schools, aided and controlled. And the one school that is not a faith school, that is promoting religious education and doing a great job, is the John Taylor Matt. And that is the school I visited when I talked about networking and key issues.
Could I just make a comment, Mary?
Yeah.
Within Staffordshire, there are no Church of England secondary schools as such, which is why there's no reference to this in the data. The one school that there was high school is now part of Stoke-on-Trent.
So it's difficult year on year to make comparisons, but I have tried my best. We can see that schools prioritise RE most strongly in years 7 to 9. And we know that if this becomes part of the national curriculum, then there will be, all schools have to teach the national curriculum. So that will make sure that the other schools that are not doing it will have to do it by law. There's a notable drop at Key Stage 4 and at Key Stage 5 because not all children enter for GCSE in RE or religious studies, and not all obviously enter for an A-level, or some schools don't have a 6th form. But where they do not enter them for a GCSE, they still by law must teach them religious education. But some schools are just paying lip service to that, and they're combining it with relationship, health and sex education. So one week they do religious studies, the next week they do RHSE or personal health and social education. But at least something is happening. And whereas years ago it wasn't happening, I suppose we ought to look at it in a more favourable light. Staffordshire is on a par with the national. It's no worse, it's no better. But we have to be thankful, I think, to know that there are just 3 schools not adhering to the regulations as set out. You can see at page 75, 76, 77 and 78, I have gone into a greater detail about the data and the key patterns. And as I said, the highest provision schools are predominantly faith schools, particularly Catholic schools. And 6th form figures are variable because most schools, or many of them, don't have a 6th form. So you can't compare like with like. So the implications are that RE is vulnerable in non-faith schools. It's vulnerable in schools where there are high free school meals children, where there is a lot of deprivation. RE is not high on their agenda. And where leaders understand the importance of religious education, which is what I emphasize in the equality, diversity and inclusion training, then outcomes improve, which is good to know. The data, there's inconsistencies. This is filled in by secretaries and bursars at school. They don't teach the RE. They just ask, the RE lead, how many RE hours do you do? I do about 26, and then they put 26 in. But then the RE teacher might think, I forgot to tell her I do philosophy and ethics. Well, that is actually part of religious studies as well. So there is inconsistencies in the database, and we have to acknowledge that. But all in all, it's not a bad picture, but it's not excellent. But it's better, I think, than we've had in previous years. So I suppose we've just got to be thankful for that.
One of the duties of SACRE, one of the main duties, is to monitor the delivery of the agreed syllabus and the provision for RE in schools. And this is what Mary is attempting to do in this collection of data. So this is a good opportunity for people to ask about, to go into depth on this if they wish to, or to raise questions about how far our schools are delivering high quality education that fulfills the pupils' entitlement. Okay. We continue to look at the data year by year, and as Mary says, it's gradually getting better in a number of directions. So we're grateful for that, and it's partly due, I'm sure, to Mary's advocacy and energy in trying to extract the data. Not exactly trying to get blood out of a stone, but schools are under pressure to provide all sorts of responses to this, that and the other. So we're very glad when they do put in data.
And thinking forward, looking forward into the new financial year, I have been speaking to HIFSA, the new, the newer chair.
The real chair.
The chair, yeah. And we are thinking about possibly we ought to run some workshops for the teachers at Key Stage 3 and 4, a little bit more in-depth than we are providing at the moment, and perhaps run an RE conference for sixth form students, not just those taking RE, but an RE conference in general. And we might work with Stafford University with that, who might provide us with some resources to keep the costs down. So HIFSA and I are looking at that, and we're hoping that that might become part of the development plan going forward from June, when we've had a little bit more time to think it through, because we can't do that unless it's perfect, because we know teenagers have high expectations and we want to meet them.
Thank you, Mary. Now we move on to one of the most deep mysteries that I've come across in SACRE and RE work, which is the budget. I find it very difficult to understand the budget, but Mary is going to explain it.
The main thing is we only have £235 left in the budget, which is good news. Because we've had years where we've had thousands left in the budget, but we didn't even know how to access it or spend it. But now that Entrust is unable to provide workshops for us due to a reduction in staffing, and that we have become sole responsible for the workshops, we have now been able to spend the money effectively and support many, many more schools and thousands of pupils. It's good news, £235 left. We had originally 6,850. The 11,870 at the bottom is I'm paid a wage by Entrust to deliver SACRE work, and I am provided with 1 day a month to do this work. So that is part of that, but please, I do not get paid £11,000. I'm not sure where the rest of that one goes. That's life. So we only have £235 left. I know now the accountant really well at Staffordshire County Council. We're getting on very well, and I'm able to produce purchase order numbers, invoices and everything according to the correct timescales. But it's taken a number of years, but we're there. I don't know how much we'll get next year. We hopefully will get 6,850 again, and that they will pay the additional for my wages. So we'll see how that goes. I'm very optimistic.
Yes, I mean, in case it's not clear to everyone, the financial year ends at the end of this month, March, so that everything that is needing to be supported for this term is already covered. And there's just this extra 235, and as soon as the new financial year kicks in, then a new budget will operate, and no doubt this will be reported at the next meeting.
Yes, so schools who want workshops from the summer term only are starting to write to me now and booking those in. So then that gives me a good idea of what purchase order numbers to ask for and to then guide the budget through effectively.
Thank you, Mary. Any questions? But as Mary says, it's quite a satisfactory end result just to have a little bit there at the end. Not to be over budget, and for Mary's own contribution to be adequately supported as well. So on to the next item, which is, I think the work programme, is it?
Development plan. There we go.
Yeah. Development plan, which would you like to take on, Mary?
Development plan is up to date. You can see that we have new members and that we are trying to get you familiar with terms of reference and code of conduct and those types of things. I've hopefully given you a little flavour of regarding religious education, and perhaps in the next meeting I'll give you a little bit more information about collective worship within schools. We are aiming to scrutinise the GCSE and A-level results from 2025. Those are the ones I'm still waiting for, so we're aiming to do that. We're supporting the agreed syllabus, and we do that through our engagement with the workshops, and I also do it through something called the Governor Information Pack, which Joe referenced, where I indicate to governors where they are or actually need to be asking questions of their leaders with regard to religious education. The Culham St Gabriel grant, number 5 on the development plan, well, I'm still carrying that forward, even though we don't have the grant anymore. So I suppose that we ought to call that the legacy of Culham St Gabriel, because that's the equality, diversity and inclusion aspects. And then understanding of SACRE processes, safeguarding code of conduct. Well, you can see we've been doing that today, so we're up to date on that one. That was amber, so that after next meeting will turn green, because we will have looked at the code of conduct in more detail. We have the development of the website. So what will happen is once we have agreed the code of conduct, Joe will update the website and make sure that's on the website and available to all. And then the Entrust website, which is for teachers, I make sure that's up to date with planning and schemes of work and any tweaks that are needed. So the development plan is working, it's there, and we put it into the annual report, and the annual report, make sure that we keep all of those aspects up to date, and we inform Staffordshire County Council, we inform, I think, cabinet meetings, we inform the national bodies, who informs the DFE, and they see our development plan, so they know where we're going. So that's the development plan, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Or any suggestions for other work, come to that. No, well, thank you very much, Mary. It's good to have a kind of sense of direction and of development like that. So thank you very much. Moving on, we come to this curiosity now, variations of practice. I have a spiel about this in case anybody finds it unfamiliar. The legislation allows for a school to ask for a variation in its practice in relation to collective worship, but I see also there's a reference here to the agreed syllabus as well. But particularly it's about collective worship that this was originally included. And it allows a school not to have to offer collective worship, which is broadly or mainly of a Christian character. It doesn't mean to say that they can get away with doing no collective worship at all. It's exactly the opposite. What they are required to do if they ask for a determination is to provide collective worship of an alternative kind, which satisfies the requirements that it should be of an appropriate kind and should be systematic. In other words, it should be planned. It shouldn't be just sort of hand-to-mouth kind of material. We don't have this kind of situation in this local authority, but I do know of local authorities where this is a regular item on the agenda, and the SACRE reviews the number of each determination that it's given from time to time to ensure that the school in question is continuing to offer pupils collective worship of an alternative character. This is all that this is about. We haven't received any requests from schools that they should vary their collective worship practice, so we just report that. Okay. And finally, we move on to reflection, I think, Mary.
Yes, that's correct.
There we go.
This is an opportunity for people to think about what we've done this afternoon and to offer comments on it or respond to it in a more personal way. Do you want to say anything?
You mentioned the percentage of curriculums for year 7 and onwards. I may have missed it, but what about junior schools, younger ages than that?
That information is not collected on the data sheets from the DFE, but I can assure you, I would say 99.9% of primary infants, first, middle, they deliver RE. The middle schools do it really well because I'm involved with the middle schools quite a bit. And primary schools I'm involved in a lot and have yet to come across one that does not teach religious education. There was one, Ofsted found out, and I was placed into that school to promote religious education and to work with them. That was 2 years ago, and now they've come out with the next Ofsted, and everything is fine with religious education. So it doesn't include primary, unfortunately, but within the agreed syllabus, we tell them very nicely how many hours they should be delivering religious education, and most of them are very embarrassed if they don't hit that. And they usually own up and ask for help. But it's a good question. It's a very good question. Thank you.
That's reassuring to know. Thank you.
Just to say that in Catholic schools, in primary, it's 10% of the taught curriculum is Catholic faith, just out of interest.
Yeah, my granddaughter last year took her GCSE in RE. She did very well. But it was a year earlier than all the other GCSEs. Why is that?
It just happens that in some high schools, my son did the same. He took RE a year early. And it could be an indicator that they've had some really good RE teaching previously, and they have been able to have the maturity of thought to be able to address that RE a year earlier. So if there's been good RE teaching previously, then they can access it a year early and do very well indeed. And I'm with you, my son did exactly the same and got a good grading.
If I could add a comment, I think that another factor here may be that this is something that the pupils can achieve if they have a good support from the teachers and from the programme, so that they can do this within the first year of the GCSE key stage, which clears it out of the way so that they can concentrate on other things for the second year. So it's got that practical edge to it, I suspect.
Plus it sets them up for the next year, doesn't it, you know?
The reflections. Yeah.
No?
Okay. Well, I will share with you that I was going to have to leave this meeting at 3:45 because I have to get back home, change into more respectable clothes, and to collect my wife, and we have an appointment with evening prayer, evensong at Lichfield Cathedral at 5:30, followed by quite an important occasion for me. So thank you very much for conducting the afternoon in an expeditious but thoughtful way, which will enable me to do that without having to leave prematurely. And thanks very much to Mary for all the work she does and the support she gives and the exposition of the responsibilities that we have and the work that's going on within our schools.
And what Michael is referring to is a celebration of his contribution towards the Lichfield Diocese and how he is valued so highly. And he also has another celebration in March. The bishop is personally making sure that that goes well. And I know all of us applaud Michael for his, his just amazing thought process, which is evident in everything he tells us about his work. This is a very small part of Michael's work that he does throughout the county and particularly the diocese. And when I speak about SACRE and they say, oh, who is on there? And I say, oh, well, Michael Metcalf. I don't need to say another word. And they go, oh, Michael is amazing. Michael is this. And then at the conference, the NASACRE conference I was at, somebody came forward and said, are you Staffordshire SACRE? Oh, you are amazing, aren't you? The things you get up to, the things you do, and the things you work on. So I said, well, you know who it's down to? And they went, Michael Metcalf. And that's where we finished.
You've succeeded in embarrassing me, Mary. Can I thank you all? Can I thank you all very much for your support and attendance this afternoon and your contributions. Declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.